Welcome to the Dork Forest. Jackie and her pals will never bore us. Shameless confessions
about our obsession
will make us laugh and smile. So let's explore the Dork Forest and dork out for a while.
Hi, Rangers. It's me, Jackie Kashian. Welcome to the Dork Forest. It's 2024. Let's do this. Here's the credits, of course. Mike Ruekberg sang that song at the beginning, and he wrote that song, and he sang it with Sarah Cohen, his wife, and he will sing the Mexican hat dance at the end of the program. Also, Patrick Brady, still putting this together. Video, audio, all of it. He's amazing. So, and Vilmos doing JackieKashianStore.com. Squarespace is doing the regular Jackie Kashian page, and I'm thinking of moving the Dork Forest and dorkforest.com away from WordPress because it's driving me nuts. But those are the credits. But if you go to JackieKashian.com, you can get Dork Forest merch. You can get my stand-up merch. You can get my stand-up CDs and DVDs, which you'd have to have devices for those. You can also see videos and find out any number of things. I have another podcast called The Jackie and Laurie Show, but the Dork Forest is the flagship. 18th year. We're doing it, you guys. You can go to my Bandcamp or my YouTube for extra content. Please donate, is what I'm saying. It's 2024, and I think we've been in this long enough. Why don't you guys, everybody send me $100? That's what I'd like you to do. You can PayPal me. There's links all over the pages. You can Venmo me at Jackie Kashian. You can find me at a stand-up show and hand me a sweaty wad of 20s. Do something. But I love doing the show. I would love to make some money, is what I'd like to do. In other news, I'm sure there's more things that I should talk about, but I can't think of them. But let's listen to who's going to dork out about something, because that's my favorite part. Thanks for listening, you guys. You're all great. Let's get into the show. You guys, it's going to be an exciting start to this show. I'm Jackie Kashian. You're listening to The Dork Forest. I don't know that Kimberly Clark has been on the program before. Have you been on the program before?
This is my first time.
Have you done The Dork Forest?
No.
This is it.
Thank you.
This is all right. You have to go get something, though, right away, right?
No, I wanted to put my guacamole in the refrigerator.
She cooks, you guys. She makes guacamole. I just made... Yeah, go do it. I'll talk about, this is the second one I'm recording. So if you listened last week, you got me here, talk to Martha Bowles about my Egyptian chicken that I made, and it was delicious. Oh, always remember, never forget, it's a podcast. Yes. We're in this together. Kimberly Clark, stand-up comic, a delight. HBO has one of the They Ready specials.
Netflix.
So
Netflix.
You can look that up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Netflix?
You said HBO.
What did I say?
You said HBO.
Comedy Central? HBO. Oh, that's right. Netflix, even glamorous, even more so. Because HBO is now called Max. But at Kimberly Clark Comedy is her handle on Instagram. KimberlyClarkComedy.com is the website. If you go to Netflix, the They Ready series, Kimberly's got one of the like it's like a 20-minute set
about that,
right? Yeah, it's awesome.
Thank you.
Congrats. And Does the Road, is about to do a cruise ship that you're probably not going to be on, but if you are on and you see that there's a comedy club, go see Kimberly Clark because you will enjoy. Now, I was not given a list of but back in the old days when I was a child, you would buy a vinyl album, and then sometimes it was like a book, and you'd open it up. And it would have the tiniest font in the world full of information. You like liner notes.
God. I love liner notes. I cannot stand the age that we're in right now where all the music is digitized. You don't get to enjoy album art anymore. And for me, the liner notes for me was a lot of the enjoyment of getting a new album. And listening to music.
Okay, it was like the whole experience.
I needed the whole experience. Okay. And I really, I kind of came like at the end of vinyl, kind of. Like vinyl was still a thing, like LPs were a thing when I was a kid. But I'm more of like cassette CD person.
Yeah, we were cassettes. I came in on the cassettes, and then I had to switch everything over to CDs, and then I had to buy a Zune
A
or
Zune,
whatever,
yes.
an
I have not
iPod.
heard Zune in years. That's hysterical.
I'm here with your old
That
timey
didn't
references.
catch on.
So it certainly did not. But my parents
Yes.
had albums, and they all had. I remember my brothers just poring over. They're just like, the lead singer
Mhm.
wrote this. This is how it all came together. Like, I don't even remember what was in the liner
I
notes.
absolutely like. I used to love reading Prince's liner notes, although they were very like mysterious. And instead of like writing the letter I, he would draw an I instead. Yeah, like, and it
Okay.
was just very like, it was artistic, when he would write his liner notes and everything. So those were really cool to read, but very shrouded in
Right.
mystery. It was very biblical. It was biblical.
Like a lot of weird
Yeah, it was like,
references to the
yeah, it
Jehovah
was
Witnesses
biblical, it
and
was sexual, it was mysterious, it was magical, it was everything like his liner notes are like that.
it's like a story about how it all came together, and yet also
Yeah, yeah.
somehow not
You know,
relevant at all,
I would even
weirdly
like
enough.
compare Prince's liner notes to reading like the Dr. Bronner's soap bottles, like, all that word those words that Dr. Bronner puts on his, like, that's kind of like how Prince's liner notes were, because they were just so convoluted and shrouded in mystery, but it was still like interesting to read. But I love his liner notes. Um,
So, like, the only album I think I ever owned
okay.
was Purple Rain. Just because I don't I like to buy one album of every band and
Hmm.
artist ever. And then I
Hmm.
just listen to that album for 40
Okay.
years, it turns out. Um, but I do buy a new
Do
album
you
every year.
vinyl?
So, but I don't do vinyl. We don't have a
Okay.
turntable. And they're back. I know
I
that.
don't,
Do
and
you
I
have a
really would
turntable?
like to invest in one
Oh,
because I want to start going back to Amoeba again. I mean, I went to Amoeba to get like a book about a musician, um, but I didn't get any music
yeah.
because I'm like, I consume all my music digitally now, which is kind of tragic. Um,
Right. Right. Because the art, I mean, the great thing about albums
yeah,
is how big they were.
exactly,
Because there could be
exactly.
detail. And now, like if I my new CD's coming out or my new album's coming out, and I
Yes,
want album art just because
yes.
it's
It's
more
it's
fun.
conceptual. I feel like the artists were way more like involved with. I feel like the music was like very cohesive, like more cohesive back in the day versus now, where it's just like they just throw things. It's very.
It's
Go ahead.
it might be no, I was just gonna say it feels like the difference between
Exact. That's
tracks
what I
and
was just about to
albums.
say. It's very singles driven, like music is now. Yeah, very
Singles.
singles driven.
Right. Because what was your first like album that you listened to as a kid, like start to finish, where you were like, "Oh, that kind of
Hmm.
had an arc."
Um,
Do you remember a good
it was
one from
it was definitely
early on
Thriller. It
in
was
your
definitely
music days?
Thriller.
Oh yeah, that totally had
Uh
a
huh.
yeah. What were the
I
liner
didn't
notes on
read.
that like?
That's the thing.
Because it
I
was
didn't read the liner notes on Thriller because I was a kid. Like I was a kid. Or yeah, yeah. I
you were
wasn't like
9.
really like
Right.
yeah. I didn't really get into liner notes till I was about like in high school. That's when I.
Okay. So what was the first
Well, the
liner
most
note one?
memorable that of liner notes that I remember reading and really pouring over, and it like dragged me into a rabbit hole, was reading the liner notes for Blackstreet. They were remember that song No Diggity? I like to bang it up. Okay.
Yeah.
Teddy
Yeah.
Riley.
Yeah.
Okay. He was the
Okay.
founder of the group, and he was also a producer, which, side note, he produced Michael Jackson's Dangerous album, which had the
Okay.
song "Remember the Time" and all that. So that was
That might have been the Michael Jackson album I had. I think I had Dangerous,
yeah,
which was obscure-ish as far as not like it wasn't his
yeah. That's
biggest
not
one.
even bad.
And then
You
I
didn't
would
have
hear
bad. Oh
I didn't have
wow.
bad.
Okay.
No. I tend to buy like weird, and it's weird because I
hmm
read authors, but I don't listen to music with
Got
the
it.
same
Okay.
completion. Like I read
hmm
everything somebody's written, but I don't listen to everything everyone's recorded, which is I might want to because I mean obviously if I really liked some of
Right.
it, I would like the next one.
Well, I have to
Anyway,
back
we'll
up
find.
because okay, I really got into these liner notes, but the liner notes that like sent me into a rabbit hole into this rabbit hole was there was also an artist named Khalees, and she used to sing this song called
Okay.
"I Hate You So Much Right Now." Do you remember that song? I remember it. You should listen
No,
to
I
it. I'll
don't.
send it to you. It's a great
No.
song.
Please, you know what? If you make me a Spotify list or any sort of
Yeah.
list, whatever, Apple, of 8 of your favorite the music episodes are fraught with peril with me just because I don't know a lot about
Uh-huh.
a lot of artists. So I always say
hmm
8 songs that represent whatever the
Yeah.
hell we're talking about here. Because Murray, do you know Murray
That
Valeriano?
name
Remember
sounds
Murray?
familiar. I think I know.
He's a comic. He was on once. He talked about U2. He gave me a USB stick with 102 U2 songs on it. And I said, "You just gave me a free USB stick. I'm never listening to 102
That is a
U2
lot.
songs." It's a lot. So that's when the
Yeah,
8 song rule happened. So
that's
if
like
you would
somebody
like
giving
to
you a
make
book
me
report. Like 102 songs? That is not
so many
pleasurable.
songs,
Of one
so many
band?
no, of one band. I was like, "Just pick 8 songs that are your favorite songs." And he was like, "I have about I could maybe get it." And I was like, "No, no,
That's like
8."
waterboarding. Like how that's crazy. Who does that?
It was so many songs.
Okay,
Okay, so how do
it's
you spell
spelled
this woman's name?
Khalees.
It's not
K
Khalid,
as like Kimberly.
right?
Elis. Khalees. And she's
Oh, okay.
actually like she lives on a farm now. She used to be married to the rapper Nas. It's a whole drawn out story. But
Okay.
basically,
Oh,
when she came
there's some
out
drama.
though, she came out her first album was called Kaleidoscope. And she had that song, I Hate You So Much Right Now, which was amazing because it was this funky R&B track. And she came out with this
Okay.
like bright hair, crazy curly hair, and she was screaming, I hate you so much right now in this song. And it had like these synthesizers and this digital, sound. And it was like in the early
Yeah, yeah.
2000s. So I was like, who in the heck produce this track? I had to know. And so, I had to go to the liner note. And that's where the
That's where the
knowledge is.
knowledge
And I was
is.
introduced to a production team called the Neptunes, right? So the
The
Neptunes,
net
like the planet
tones.
Neptune, but
Tunes.
they called
Oh, the
themselves the Nep. You
Neptunes.
get it?
Okay, got it.
The double entendre.
I get it.
So I was like,
Mhm.
who is this
Mhm.
team? And then get this. So it was two guys. One of the guys was named Chad Hugo, and the other one was Pharrell, who you, I'm sure, know. Yes.
Yes.
So
I
I
know
was
Pharrell.
like, this was my first introduction to the Neptunes. And my mind was like, this is amazing. And I was already a huge Khalees fan. And then to hear who was behind her sound, I was just like, my mind was blown. But double back,
Right.
right? So Blackstreet, I believe Blackstreet came out before Khalees, right? So when I
Right.
went into the I'm trying to think if this came out before Khalees or after. Okay, this says 1994. So I think,
Oh wow. That
yeah.
sounds
So I think this
before.
was
If
before.
she was early
Exactly.
2000s.
So when I went into this CD, guess whose names were in
Yep.
there?
Well,
Pharrell and
Pharrell?
Chad Hugo. And they basically
Right.
Teddy Riley was like a mentor to them. So they're all through this
Okay.
CD from 1994 before they became who they became.
Right, right.
And like
Right,
Chad,
right.
they were band kids from like Virginia Beach, okay?
Oh,
Yes.
that's awesome. I love it when
And
they're
they
band
met in
kids.
band camp. So when I'm looking through these liner notes, I'm like, oh my God. Chad Hugo, there's like this slow song on here. I think it's called Make Me a Happy Home. And there's like this saxophone
Okay.
solo. Chad Hugo is actually playing the saxophone solo breakdown.
Okay.
And they were like integral in like some of the production of this CD. It's crazy. It's
Right.
absolutely crazy.
Okay.
Um,
S- It's so what you're looking at sometimes is those producers and where they all connect, and because the producers, they do create
mhm,
a sound, because the musicians
mhm,
are amazing, obviously, and they sing and they play, and
mhm.
it's great. But whoever sort of,
Yes.
it's sort of like editors, or yeah, that production team, are they affecting the sound in addition
I
to
think some of them,
the like
I think people like
mess with the music?
Pharrell and
Yeah.
Chad Hugo do both because they're also musicians as well as
Okay.
producers. They can actually play
Right, right.
instruments versus like, oh God, I hate to bring him up, but P. Diddy. Um, he was a producer too, but he didn't play any instruments. You know what I'm saying? But
Right.
but he had a musical ear and he could say, okay, add this, do that, add that, or whatever. He had an ear,
Right.
but with these guys, they did both. And they actually came out with their own band eventually called NERD, which was really cool.
Okay.
And they had, I think, about 4 albums. And yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Like they're like my
it
ex-
spells nerd, by the
yes.
way. Pretty psyched about it.
I think it stands for they did that on purpose and it stands for no one
Yes,
ever
they did.
really dies is what it stands for. Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Oh, that's cool. Um, yeah, it took me a hot second to realize what KRS-One stood
Okay.
for. So, knowledge reigns supreme over
Yes,
nearly
yes.
everyone.
Okay. Okay,
Yes, and
Jackie.
it's by the seriously, I own one one album. Actually, I think I owned 3 KRS-One albums
That's
because I really
impressive.
did like
Yes.
him.
What's your favorite
And
KRS song?
yeah, early one afternoon at 11 o'clock, it was freezing cold. I was standing on the block selling Chiba, Nixon dimes, saying a rhyme just to pass the time. The cops drove by, but I stayed calm. The leather trench
Yes.
coat was keeping me warm. Anyway, that's one of
I
my
like
favorites. It's the one about
was that Duck
the police.
Down?
What do you like?
Sucker MC's Duck Down. Duck Down. I
No,
used to
no,
love
no,
that
it's
song too.
early. That Duck
Yes.
Down's great. Yeah.
That's impressive. Okay, Jackie.
Right. Well, and it's funny because everything, and then I bought albums that
Mhm.
he mentioned. Like whatever he was like, I really like Eric B and Rakim. So I bought an Eric B and
Yes.
Rakim album. And then I bought a Big Daddy Kane
Yes.
album. And then I think it
Yes.
was 1992. And so and then I think I bought but just like 10 years ago I got my
Okay.
first Dolly Parton album.
I like Dolly.
Yeah. So I mean,
I
yeah,
like
Dolly's
her.
amazing. Turns out I bet you her liner notes are
I would love
extraordinary
to
on
read
some of this
hers.
stuff because she's probably got, yeah. So what else besides the producers is the
I like I love reading about I love reading the thank yous, who they thank.
okay? Oh, are you just
I
looking
look.
at the list
I
of
read. I read
human
the
beings that
whole
took part?
thing, Jackie. When I tell you, I read the whole thing. I read the whole thing. I read who was involved with what track. Um, Even with Lauryn Hill's controversial miseducation of Lauryn Hill, because the whole thing with her album was the fact that the producer said that they didn't get credit and that she took credit for writing. Like you could read about it. I think,
Oh,
yeah,
because I
I
had
think
that
all
album.
that's been
Yeah.
resolved. But John Legend
Okay.
played piano on that album. Yeah, that's why
Oh,
you
I
gotta
did
read the
not know
liner
that.
notes.
Do you know why you know that? Because
Girl,
that's in
you
the
got
liner
to
notes.
read the liner. That's why I take so much pride in it. It's not even it's such a weird quirk that I had. And
It's a
it
hell of a
really is.
niche.
And that's
It's
why I love like listening to Questlove, like nerd out too. And I read like a couple of his books, and he was really big on like
okay.
album art covers and stuff like that and liner notes. Um, but that's why I nerd out so much on that stuff, because I'm just like, I knew that. And when I'm looking at documentaries or, hearing people mention different people, I'm like, I knew they were working with, together. I knew that was, yeah, there's another one that's really interesting to me. I have my whole CD. I'm sorry I disappeared on you. Um,
Oh, that's okay. You will come
I
back.
can't
That's the
find it,
beautiful
but
thing.
you know who the Tribe Called
Okay.
Quest is, right? Okay. So their
Yes.
last
Yeah.
album, well, technically it wasn't their last album, because their last album was "We'll Take It From Here," and that came out right after Fife passed away. But their album
Okay.
before that was their basically their breakup album. It was called "The Love Movement," and
Okay.
in the Love Movement, there were some tracks produced by this very mysterious production team called the UMA. That's what they called it, the UMA. Who is the UMA? And so,
Okay.
and then you would hear them like shout out the UMA, in some of the songs. You would see the UMA in other people's liner notes as well. So the UMA consisted of Q-Tip, um, Ali Shahi Muhammad, who was the DJ for Tribe Called Quest. Um, I think,
Okay.
did I say Jay Dilla? He was like a super DJ producer who passed away. Jay
Okay.
Dilla. I believe D'Angelo also partook in the UMA in some of their productions as well as Raphael Sadiq,
Okay.
who was the lead singer for Tony, Tony, Tony. So that production team was
Okay.
called the UMA. And so I and the sound
Okay.
was
Which is
very, very it was very distinct, like you knew, okay, the UMA did this. You know what I mean? But it was really but the
okay.
UMA was
Yeah.
really fashioned after Jay Dilla's sound, with like the dragged out beats and the dragged out drums that they were doing like in that era of that was probably
Oh, okay. And that was
it
his
was
his
more.
more signature thing that essentially
Yeah, yeah.
affected the team.
But that was the UMA. But I always loved that too when you would see it in the liner notes. It's like the UMA. And I'm like, I know who it's
Instead
like
of
I
all of
know who
their
y'all
names.
are. I know who it is.
I love that. There is something to knowing sort of like the
Yes.
secret. You're just like that is buried in the liner notes of who was doing. What do you think the difference? Okay, this is a very basic question. The difference between the DJ and the producer, because I know that there's crossover. Like a lot
hmm
of DJs
I think there's
produce,
I think there's a lot of
but
overlap with that because I think a lot of DJs make beats. And so that to me
yeah,
puts you in the producer category. I don't know if I'm saying this right, but
right, because
to me that automatically puts you in a producer category.
it feels
Yeah.
like then you're writing. Then
Mhm.
you're writing the music. It'd be like
Mhm.
collaboratively in stand up, where if you're
Mhm.
punching up something, then you're
For
writing
sure.
that part of that joke,
Yeah.
you know? So if you're making the So if you have a DJ, you know, DJ, there are two musicians named Khalid, except for that one, the pronunciation.
Yeah,
There's the big guy
Khaled.
who is Khaled. That's it. And I inadvertently followed him on Snapchat when I
Yeah,
first got on Snapchat, and it was
yeah. Oh yeah.
mesmerizing. His life, just he was. I was there for the birth of his son,
Yes.
and I didn't want to be, but there was there
The
was no
son
need.
probably didn't want
There
all
was no
them
need
people
for me.
there either.
No, and he never mentioned
Wow.
the mother's name, and we never got to meet the mother. And
Okay.
that's when I stopped. I was like, "You're a lot, man." And plus, he was in an elevator with like one of his bodyguards or one of
Mm-hmm.
his employees, and he was like, they were talking about how the guy had
Mm-hmm.
wanted a day off, and Khalid was saying, "There's no days off," and I was like, "Okay, little self care, my friend. Why don't
He
you
had a very
invest?"
intense
But
run there. Like it, he had an
he did, and he produced a lot of songs that
yeah,
were
yeah,
super
he had an
fun.
intense run.
They were
Mm-hmm.
pretty fun
Mm-hmm.
to listen to, but you could also kind of hear the intensity. I don't know, like Adderall, cocaine laden nights,
Yes.
where I was like, I'm enjoying this, but if I had to listen to a lot of it, I'd be like, I
It's a
should probably go
lot.
to detox.
It's a lot.
And
You know,
yeah.
go ahead.
And then there's the young guy who I think
Yes.
is just called Khalid, who sings "Young, Dumb, and
I'm a
Unemployed," or
little
what is
familiar with
he?
him. I really don't know him like that. But he can
Yeah,
sing.
but he sounds very high,
Mhm.
but very sweet.
Don't they all?
So it turns out they all kind of do it. Just I've turned it essentially. I'm your aunt.
It's like, honey, lay off that stuff. Lay off that.
Right. Stop hanging out with strippers and hang out with librarians, and you'll be singing about how bitches be reading too much.
My
And
dad called it wacky
so
weed.
he wasn't wrong. He was not incorrect.
I wanted
It's
to
a
backtrack
wacky,
on something
yes.
you said about how when
Yeah,
you listen to KRS-One albums, like they influence you to buy other records. That's the beauty of hip hop
right.
too. And that was another thing I also did was in the liner notes. I would see the songs that were sampled. And so you got to go and you're like, okay, that song that they put that song in there, and then you look for that album by that original artist, and then you're introduced to a whole new
Right.
I was introduced to so much jazz music. I mean, I was already, a band kid, so I knew a lot of stuff, but still Tribe Called Quest introduced me
There's too much
they
stuff to
introduced me to
know.
a lot.
So and just obscure.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's so great. That's the other thing is yeah, you're right. Like all of the just to be for you to read the liner notes and then look for these people on other liner notes, or like what else are they working on, and then the song samples, that's huge. That just what that does is that just gives
Yes.
back to the community,
But
you know?
what the
Right?
disheartening
Because
part about it is, though, I'm sure I'm a small percentage of people that are doing that.
right. Right. They're if they're not saying their names out loud, people aren't really
No.
getting to the liner notes. They did do liner notes of CDs for a while. They're very thick booklets on the
Yeah.
plastic jewel cases. Yeah, and I remember my first album is a plastic jewel case that I would travel with, and I would always break the jewel cases. And people would be like, "Well, do I get a deal on the album?" And I'm like,
Right.
"No, you have
Look,
old
this
jewel
is a broken
cases.
jewel case right here.
You'll Right there, right there. It's and then it went to the cardboard ones that I insisted were fold out so that I
Mhm.
could put liner notes and just sort of a little
Yeah.
letter to fans. And then as CDs became less and
Yeah.
less purchased, now it's just a sleeve. You get a front
And
and you
that's
get a
it.
back. And that's all you get.
Okay.
Yeah. Which on an album, if all there was the sleeve, there you could print on the piece of paper that held the
Yeah,
album.
that's not
Remember
good
the inside
protection though for the
sleeve?
album itself. Not that the cardboard was much of anything, but that's not enough.
Right. None of
Yeah,
it was very
exactly.
good in the long. I mean, what you wanted was like something that folded. And because I remember, like, my stepmother had a lot of
Okay.
Rolling Stone albums. And when I say a lot, 3. So I come from a long line of people who buy one album.
I'm like, I know they had more than 3 albums. Come on now.
I know they did. I'm sure they did.
Oh God.
And I will say that I read the liner notes of
What
the
were those
Rolling
like?
Stone stuff, and I didn't really get it, but this is a great idea. I mean, you're reading them sort of how they're supposed to be read, with credits. I mean, do you watch the credits
No,
of
that I
movies
can't
as well?
stand.
Okay.
It is
But
the
it's the
same
same
idea.
thing,
Yeah, when I
but
look, and I know people think what
yeah,
I'm
it's the
doing
same
is
idea.
what I was doing back in the day was strange, but like I look at people that look at the credits for movies, not unless your friend is in it and you want to see their name up there, but I was like, you don't know
Right.
these
Yes, I
people.
would
You
love
want
to.
to look at the credits?
But you don't know the people that are written
Well,
on the
in a way
liner
I
notes,
do.
but
In a
then you
way I
do.
do. Yeah.
And now you do. Right. It was, I mean, I could see it's like some people really love, they follow certain
Yes.
cinematographers and directors and I mean, at a very basic
Yeah.
level, actors. So, and character actors, I guess, would be the obscure version of that. Just the f- s- just there's just nerd comics who are just like, and then they
Right.
name some name where you're like, no, I don't know Josh Dunwoody. I just made that up. Or whatever. Well, if you saw him, you'd recognize him because he's
Right.
been in everything. And
Well,
you're
I
like,
think
okay, all right.
it's
But
cool
it's gotta be
because
like
it
that.
like we said before, it leads you into these other, it's like a river that like leads you into this other stream of something else, and you discover another artist, or another genre, so it's like, I don't know, that's what it
Yeah.
did for me. But
Were there any good stories though? I mean, that's what I always want there to be in the liner notes. Like, when Ringo and I first met,
oh
it
yeah,
was,
there's
we were
beefs
having
in liner
hoagies.
notes, like people be like, putting like,
Oh,
and for all the
who
haters
they
out there, yeah,
dislike?
I can't think of any like off the top of my head, but definitely a lot of rappers did that.
Right, why wouldn't they? It was the origin of the
For sure.
art form. A lot of just bitching about other people's over.
Oh,
"Do you hear this beat? You hear this
here's a
beat?
good one.
This is
Okay, so this is
amazing."
Camp
Go ahead.
Low, right? This was one of my favorite. Uh, yes.
Camp Low.
I'll make you a Spotify. Don't worry about it now,
Okay.
Jackie.
Okay. And I will repost it, Rangers. You
I'll
will
make
see
you a
it.
Spotify,
Okay.
but this was a
Yes,
rap
please.
duo named Camp Low. Chiba was one of the rappers. This is hilarious. I just grabbed this
Okay.
randomly. This, and I quote, Chiba thinks the aunt that kicked me out her house last winter. The broad, the
That is awesome.
it gets better.
You're just like,
The broad that
okay.
won't let me see my son. The cats that smile in my face and talk trash behind my back. Mr. Midnight, the
Oh.
females that love me, stupid ill will, and all the cats that laugh at my style and then copy it. Love to the people who hate everything about me, crazy mom, thug pops, and all the delegates that help compose this new shit. Camp Camp Low would like to thank the entire profile staff and everyone who supported us. That was there.
And then it ends with like a very much, and in conclusion, thank you very much. Don't forget to give to the March of Dimes.
Professionally,
Okay.
But this
Yes,
happened more
yes.
often than not. You know what I'm saying? Like with rappers, that's why you gotta read the liner notes.
Right.
I mean, you get an education, you get entertained. It's amazing. I love liner notes so much. You have no idea. You have no idea.
That's so great.
Okay.
Yeah, grab another
Let me
one.
see. I don't know
what
if
else
any.
is happening.
I want to get.
What the heck?
I'll just grab this one randomly. This is Roy Hargrove. Actually, he was a jazz trumpeter. He passed away a couple of years ago. He worked with.
Okay. I actually love jazz trumpet. Of all the jazzes, I have a hard time with sort of jazz. What is the instrument I don't enjoy? There is something I don't enjoy in jazz.
Okay.
But trumpet is not it. I think it's
really
reed instruments like clarinet.
That's what I play, Jackie.
Yeah.
Yes.
You play clarinet
and saxophone.
Well,
do you like saxophone?
Click.
Okay.
I do love saxophone. Saxophone? Yeah, that is a reed instrument, and I like saxophone. I like bari sax, and I like regular saxophone. I don't like the higher. There's like a piccolo kind of sax that I'm not a fan
Kenny G
of.
plays, like the soprano saxophone.
Yeah, like soprano saxophone. It gets a little too
tingy.
Like I feel like barking. It's a little tinny for me. Yeah,
this one is too. It's kind of. I don't want to say it's boring, but it's to the point. He's not saying anything salacious. But Roy Hargrove is great. I'm gonna put that on your playlist.
Okay, I have to say that this is something I admit on most of the musical episodes of the Dork Forest. I once accidentally saw Miles Davis, and there's no reason for that. My friend had 2 tickets and her friend couldn't go. So she said, "Will you come with me?" And I was like, "Who is he?" And I was in band. You would think I would know Miles Davis. I played the trumpet, not well. And I also played the clarinet, also not well.
Yes.
But I loved it. I loved band with the power of the sun. And but I saw Miles Davis he played a room that was not made for music. It was a town hall in Provincetown, Massachusetts for about 180 people. And he got on stage and he said, "Does anyone have any floss?" And an older lady in the front row, he said, "You will enjoy my playing much more if you have floss." And so she gave him her floss. And then he played, and he was amazing, as you can well imagine. But this was 1989.
I would have killed to have experienced that.
See, there are people who there's no justice, which means, of course,
and then
there's no
him
peace.
asking for floss. You got to read Miles Davis biographies because they are some of the most he was a funny guy. A lot of those jazz musicians were incredibly funny, their antics, the floss thing. That's hysterical.
I have to say that some of my favorite comedy right now are pop lyrics. Yeah, just like some 27-year-old woman just losing her mind and just yelling about her life and some guy and how she's not going to take it anymore. And then on the opposite side, there was one I was listening to, and it was this obviously clearly probably some 22 or 30-year-old dude going, "I know that we're broken up, but I'll still pay your lease." And I just wanted to call him and go, no. You don't have to pay her if you're not in a relationship. You don't have to actually keep paying her bills. You didn't hopefully have to pay them earlier. Okay. Yeah, it was it had a nice beat and the kids could dance to it, but the lyrics were the thing that cracked me up so hardcore because I was just like,
Right.
they're so honest as opposed to music from the 60s and 70s but were
Right.
honest and creepy. Where look at that child. I'm gonna see
Right.
if I can get with her. And you're like, please don't. And please don't tell me about it. So
Yeah. I
anyway,
don't
what
know.
are you holding in
It's
your hand?
another
I keep
Khalees. This
interrupting.
was Khalees's second album. And then she stopped working with the Neptunes after this. But this is called Wonderland. Okay.
Okay.
The crazy hair.
Oh,
I don't
cool.
really remember.
I
When I
like
look at
that.
her liner
I like that
notes,
art.
hers was very visual. But I was looking. Of course, I always looked at like who wrote the song. Um, what did she write?
Right.
She have anything interesting? That camp. I don't think I could top that Camp Low liner note. Hers is super
No.
tiny, and it's in like blueprint.
Blue
Yes.
on black, so it just blends
Yeah,
right into the world.
basically.
Where she's probably just bad mouthing like 1,000
She's
people,
not
but nobody
though.
can
Hers
read it.
this was like
She's
pretty
like,
like,
"Oh, she's not.
she started with To
Oh,
My
just
Lord and
standard."
Savior. And she kind of started with a
Okay.
prayer, which is kind of cool. You get a lot of that too with like, African American artists,
Yeah.
R&B artists. I love it when rappers do it
Did
because they'll cuss everybody out and then they'll be like, and I just would like to thank God for giving me this opportunity. You be like, all right, player.
Have you heard Kamau's? Did you when Kamau had that show, I think it was on Comedy Central or
Come on,
it was an
yes.
earlier
Yeah.
iteration of the yeah. So Kamau, he had this line about he was like, "I'd love to be an atheist, but you got to believe
Right.
in something. If you're a black man,
Yeah.
you don't have the luxury to
I mean,
not believe
we really
in
don't.
something."
Black
Yeah, it's
atheists really fascinate me. Butterfly McQueen from Gone with the Wind was an atheist, and the Atheist Society even gave
what?
her like an award and stuff because look it up. But I always found that very fascinating, especially a
Right.
woman, in the era that she was in, you know.
Right. To
Yeah.
believe in nothing. And just it feels like more work than it's
And
worth to
and I
believe in
wonder what
nothing.
like
It's
what her
kind of
family
easier.
thought too,
Yeah.
because it's like in Black culture, the church was very
Early
like tantamount, in our lives. And I was like, wow, she's
right.
fascinating. I'm not an atheist, but I find atheists fascinating.
It's funny about my father's always been a big fan of he considers the church a social
Okay.
organization,
There's
right?
an
And of
aspect of
course it
that, yeah.
is. But right, and he always wanted to get home in time for kickoff. It's
Where are you from? Minnesota, right? Wisconsin.
they're in
Okay.
Wisconsin. So, yeah, little factory town just
Hmm.
north of Chicago. And so but he was always like he told me recently, he said, "Yeah, I took communion this week." And I said, "Good." He said, "I don't take it every week. Only if I've done something." And I'm like, "You're 87. I don't even want to know what you think you're doing that
Right.
warrants the need for you to
You have to
go
go
up
to
and
the
take
confessional
communion."
booth.
But
What
okay.
does his confession sound like?
It's a Well, the great thing about the Armenian church is everybody confesses to the same stuff. We just
Oh,
confess
nice.
en
Okay, so you
masse,
just have a general one.
and it's in a general way. Yeah, you
Get
don't
it
have
in
to
all the
itemize. It's quite
details
nice,
and
actually.
stuff. Show your
Yeah.
receipt.
It's my
Your snitch receipt. You don't have to snitch on
exactly.
yourself.
That's awesome.
Whew, that's a lot.
Oh, constantly having to narc on myself. There's enough people in my life who I've
Right?
made that pact with. So yeah, I have to think. I'm trying to think if there were have now. you
I
just put out an
did.
album, right?
Not a physical one.
What's it called?
It's called Junior, and I
Junior?
would have loved to have written liner notes on that baby.
Right. You should. I
Mm-hmm.
always insist on. I mean, granted, my garage is full
Mm-hmm.
of physical copies
Mm-hmm.
of CDs that you don't want to, because you have to kind of order 1,000, so it isn't, so it doesn't cost
Yeah.
$1 million. But and now when I sell them on my website, I'm like, you would have to own these devices to want to own these items, but or you could buy a giant mismatched packet of coasters, and because I have like 5 albums
Yeah.
that are printed, and I did get to write liner notes for them, but I think it's important to be able to, because I love the
Yes.
dedications. I like on my Horcrux album, my father hated
Mm-hmm.
one of my jokes, and I was like, too late. And I said, he said, well, then you have to put a picture of me on the album of me looking handsome, because I told a joke about how
Uh-huh.
he was wearing this outfit that he insists that I made up. But why would I make up? He was wearing, it was a
Oh,
denim
shoot.
cutoff shirt and denim
Oh Lord.
Daisy Dukes
Was your
that matched.
was
Like I
your
could see the
father like
pockets.
Billy Ray Cyrus before Billy Ray Cyrus?
I
That's
asked him,
wild.
I said, "Where are you going in this outfit?" And he said, "I was fishing." And I said, "For men? Because that is a gay rave outfit." And when he heard the album, he
Oh
was
my
so
God. So did
furious.
you put a picture of him on the album?
And so I did. I put a picture of him at my brother Russ's
Okay, that was
wedding in
nice
a
of you.
tuxedo. So very
But on the
handsome.
other
He looked
side, you
very
should have had the
nice.
Daisy Duke picture.
Oh, I know. Well, he said, I don't even own anything that is cut off. All of my clothes are finished. My father is very dapper.
That's hysterical.
It is, but so I mean so that's the last liner notes I got to. But I would, when you did you get to
I
do any
did.
art at all for the
I
cover, or
did
is
do
it
art.
just a headshot? Mm.
I took I think it was my third grade picture maybe. I was wearing glasses. I had two pigtails, and I did.
Oh wait, is it a
Yeah,
4 up like an Andy
that's exact.
Warhol?
Yep.
It's on your website, which, by the way, is KimberlyClarkComedy.com. I'm talking with Kimberly Clark. It's at Kimberly Clark Comedy on the Instagram. Her album is called Junior. Feel free to buy it. I know you could stream it, but you could also throw $9.99 or $12, and she
Yeah.
gets a better cut of that. So she's hilarious. You've chosen wisely. Okay. What else you got?
I have
Anything
so
else
many.
you
I'm
want
trying to hold on. I should have been ready for this.
to?
Oh, there's this. Okay, I'm really gonna be a dork with this one. Okay, this is a jazz musician too. I love jazz. Joshua Redman. He's a
Okay.
saxophonist. My I love his
Okay.
liner notes because he's not going in on anybody in his notes, but he gets very philosophical. I think he went to like Berkeley. So, and he was supposed to be
Okay.
like, I think he was going to law. Initially, he was going to law school. I forget which colleges he went to, but he's very educated. And like he didn't go to school to be
Right,
a
right.
musician, but he was just gigging and ended up becoming a professional player.
Right, right, but he was like a philosophy
Law
major or a law
student, I
student or
believe.
something
Yeah,
like
and
that?
his dad's
Okay.
name was Dewey Redman, and he was a jazz musician from back in the day.
Oh, there you go.
But
So
he
he
really
just
didn't
grew up
have
in it.
like that
Yeah.
close of a relationship with his dad. Like he didn't really grow up with his dad. I think he saw him periodically, but he really, it just happened to him.
So it just happens. Sometimes that's weird the way you
Yeah.
just fall
But
into
he
stuff.
is amazing because he I don't know, his liner notes are like very poetic and just I would really get I'm trying to find a point of okay, okay, I'll just start from the beginning. He wrote, When I first heard
Please.
jazz, it wasn't quote jazz, it was music. I grew up in a household where you could hear Ornette Coleman right next to Otis Redding, where A Love Supreme and Sergeant Pepper's were both in heavy rotation. Where Old and New Dreams and a Balinese oh Lord, he's getting crazy with the words. Often often shared the same bill. When I was young, I didn't recognize jazz as being categorically separate or substantively different from blues, rock, funk, soul, classical, Indian, African, Indonesian, or any other of the countless musical genres. You see what I'm saying? His liner notes read like a
Yeah.
dissertation, and I was here for it.
Right.
Like I would just read
Right.
line by line, and him and what's
Oh my God! Look how big that is. Like it's
oh
just
yeah,
pages and
yeah, it folds
pages.
out.
It folds out.
Him and
Yeah.
what is my guy's name from New Orleans, the trumpet player? Oh my God, I cannot think of his name, and it's a shame. Um, his brother used to play with the Tonight Show band. Um, not the
It's
Neville
not the
brothers.
Neville
God
brothers.
damn.
I have a Neville Brothers album.
Wynton
I also
Marsalis.
have a
Wynton
Taj Mahal
Marsalis.
album.
Okay.
Wynton
So
Marsalis. Oh yeah.
Wynton Marsalis. Okay, so when Joshua Redman came out, he came out like in the 90s. Um, and so he was kind of considered, like the new lion of jazz music. It was like him. It was the guy that I showed you earlier, Roy Hargrove. Like during that era, they were
Okay.
kind of, they were like they had their hair faded, like they would wear their suits loose. You know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So it was kind of like you could kind of relate to them. They were given a newness to, but they
Right.
they still like nodded to the old standard ways. But I think Wynton Marsalis was very like straight ahead, very into the rules of jazz and all that stuff. And so I
Right.
remember they didn't really have like beef, but I remember Joshua in his very articulate way saying, I don't think jazz should have confines. And I don't think, you know what I mean?
Well, I don't think that's how jazz started. Jazz started as like this very wild kind of deviation or variation on
Right.
swing or whatever, right? And so the fact that now there's
Yeah.
laws and there's rules and you
Well,
should
I
wear a
think,
nice suit
yeah.
while
Well, I
you
think
play
Wynton
your
Marsalis,
trumpet.
he
Yes.
he definitely is into like the fundamentals, just like with stand up comedy, there are comedians that are
Yeah.
really into the fundamentals, and it's difficult for others to like see, you know, to embrace.
Yeah, I don't want to see you in shorts. That's my only
Even females, there's
that's
female
my main
comedians that
that's
wear
the
shorts sometimes, like a nice romper or
shorts. I know.
whatever.
And they'll wear a nice romper. I don't want to see shorts. Nobody
Okay.
wants to see your knees. I just or a longer dress. I
You
don't
sound
know.
like the Wynton
I'm
Marsalis of comedy.
I'm the Wynton Marsalis of stand-up comedy. Please try not to wear I mean, there's like a lot of like
I don't
onesie
I don't
overall
mind it.
business going on now. I don't mind
But you
that.
don't like to see
That
people's
seems
knees? I mean,
um
I'm not requesting to see people's knees, but I'm not adverse to it though.
right. It's usually just a bearded dude wearing cargo shorts who goes on stage that I think I'm offended by. And it also means it always because I've gone on stage in shorts and the only thing it meant was I didn't know I was going up.
That's hysterical.
So
It's like who would do this
how
on
well prepared
purpose?
am I?
I hate my legs naked, so you won't catch me
Oh
doing
my
it.
god, I have a I did this. There's a
Mhm.
photograph of my great uncle, and it's this crazy photograph of him that I just posted on
Uh-huh.
Instagram yesterday. I think it was. It was hand painted. It was from
Okay.
1915 or 1916, and I have
Oh
his
wow.
thighs, and I don't want them. It's a lot. Like when I look at him, I'm like, ugh. Yeah, that's what I look like.
Wow,
That guy.
that's
And
hilarious.
anyway,
You know what else I miss too is like
all right.
getting the lyrics inside
Yeah.
of albums too, because I have Fiona Apple's Extraordinary Machine, right? Um,
Right.
hmm
Oh, I got
I
that one.
don't have thank yous, although there may be some on another part that I like. Oh, there is a thank you.
That
It's
fell
very
out or something,
short.
or
She just has a list of names, and then she dedicated it to my friends who are my family, and my family who are my friends. That's very Fiona like. But
yeah. I'm glad she likes her family.
oh my God, Questlove
Um,
is on one of her
it's a good
albums. I didn't
sign.
know that on one of her songs. I didn't know that. Questlove from The
Well, there you
Roots, who I
go.
just mentioned. Yeah. He's in
Yeah.
Extraordinary Machine. Now I have to find out what song he's on. I'll do that
Right.
later.
Which song is
I
that?
won't look
Yeah.
now. But you don't want to go down the rabbit hole with me. But
Thanks, Kimberly. So,
yeah, she has all the lyrics are in her CD.
right now you have to look them up, and then you have to
The
hope that they're
lyrics?
accurate.
That's true,
Yeah.
right?
If it's on the album, it's exact. She's written them. He's
Yeah,
written them. They've written them. If it's on the internet, it's just some guy named Larry going, "This is what I think I
exactly.
heard." And there's a song, the Bruno Mars
Silk
Sonic.
Sonic. Yeah.
Silk Sonic. Okay, so
Sonic Burger.
there's a song. I own that
Okay.
album. So there's a song, and it's if you want to get high, I've got fillets.
Uh-huh.
Is the lyric, and I for months thought he said, if you want to get. He's talking about how if you want to get high, I
Uh-huh.
have purple haze. And if you get
I got the
hungry, if you get the
Lay's. I thought he
munchies, I
said the
have
Lay's as in
fillets.
Lay's potato chips.
That's what I thought for months. And he's saying
Are you
fillets.
sure?
So I feel
Because
vindicated.
I felt
I
like
looked it up
Lay's also was like a double entendre for wanting to get laid. Yeah.
for sexy times. Yeah, yeah. But no, I was corrected. And I think maybe the lyrics
They
online are
probably
wrong.
are.
Because I think, first of all,
Thank
Lay's
you.
is funnier. And and it
Yeah.
does have that double
I
entendre.
bet you it's Lay's.
Yeah.
And whoever wrote that is wrong.
I hope it's Lay's. Right. Whoever has judged me incorrectly, because I believe to
It's
be
gotta
Lay's
be.
potato chips. Because when you are stoned, traditionally
Yeah.
you eat potato chips. You do not sit down to a medium
Filet.
rare New York strip
Who is gonna put
or
first of all,
filet
who is gonna
mignon.
put filet in a song? Like that to me, like that word just doesn't belong in a song like that. That song is too sexy for that word. Filet.
Right?
Who's gonna put that in? Get out of here.
I don't
For
know.
them to even think
Get out of
that is
town.
like wild to me.
So we're almost at an hour. Is there
Really?
any last
Oh, I love
I know.
doing this.
We meandered around. We had a lovely time. I enjoyed learning about sort of the
Mhm.
deep cuts
I can't wait to
of
make your
different
Spotify
bands.
list. Ooh, but I'm gonna have to listen to this
Yes, please.
episode and like write down things.
Okay. Well, because what I have is
Yeah, that's a good one.
Khalees, and I have make make
Okay,
someone a happy
that's
home.
the band
What is it?
Blackstreet.
That's Blackstreet. That's yeah. There's Blackstreet. There's Khalees. There's the producers of other things, Chad Hugo and Farrell,
Nerd. Yeah,
the
put down
Neptunes,
Nerd. Yeah, you want them.
Nerd,
I'll make you some songs.
and yeah, and then put what are your
Yes.
tracks on it? That'd be hilarious. Just
Yeah, I'll
just
do
from
that.
Junior, and then I'll put it out there.
That would be so funny.
That would be really funny. Well, Kimberly Clark,
Yay.
we've done it. We've spent an hour wandering around this has been a very different, this has not
Those
come
never
up the
come up
liner
on your
notes.
show?
And now I'm
Oh, wow.
no,
Wow.
19 years. And I'm sure somebody is going to email and go, I'll talk about liner notes. And they can come back and
Amazing.
talk about liner notes. Because whenever there's overlap in the same dorkdoms, it's absolutely never the same dorkdoms.
Yes.
Because it's different albums. Though I don't know how you could fix
Camp
Was it
Low.
Camp Love?
Camplo.
Low.
Mm-hmm.
LO. Yeah, I don't know how you're going to beat that. Because his aunt who kicked him out of the. Anyway. All right, Rangers of the Dork Forest. Find Kimberly Clark doing comedy. And then buy her album, Junior. And feel free to watch the Netflix special, They Ready, Kimberly Clark. And if you happen to be on that cruise ship, say that you heard her on the Dork Forest. Thanks
you,
so much for
Jackie.
doing
Thanks
the
for
show,
having me.
Kimberly.
This was a lot of fun.
Yes. And Rangers, you know the rules out there. Take care of each other.
Hi, Doll. How was the show?
Well, it was hilarious because it was with Kimberly Clark, stand-up comic, and she talked about how much she was going to initially talk about bands.
Okay.
And then she was going to pick 5 bands. And then she was like, you know what I really like? I really like the liner notes on albums, the minutia.
Oh, yeah.
And it's one of the sad things about how everything's digital now.
Right. Even the liner notes in a CD were never quite as great as the liner notes on a record album.
Right. And they had this, I mean, there wasn't just what I always liked about the liner notes, if I bothered, was if there was a cool story.
Sure.
I kind of liked it when there was like a tale of how the band was doing.
That's
or
right.
something.
Lyrics, I mean,
yeah, she misses the lyrics.
Were more common, I think, than like some sort of other piece of fiction.
Right. The lyrics were usually there.
Right, but sometimes you'd get a bio, or sometimes you'd get,
just a little snippet of something.
Yeah.
And the thank yous. She read me a CD liner note from a band. Did I write it down? Camp Love? What did I?
It always felt like if you got an album and it didn't have any liner notes in it, it was just like a list of songs and that was it.
Yeah,
you'd be
it did feel like a bit of a rip.
A bit of a rip. Yeah.
Because the art, even if the art was good, you were like, well, I hope the sleeve has some art on it.
Right.
And I hope that there's some writing on the inside of the sleeve. And then
right. Or if you open up a CD and there was just like one sheet of paper that was the cover, and you're like, what?
Boo.
Is this even real? This doesn't even feel legit.
Right. And then she went down, the rabbit hole she goes down is who the DJs and production people are. And then she looks at other stuff that they've produced and is like, I hear the similarities. This is fun. Yes.
I remember when I started to realize that album producers were important.
When was that?
Oh, I was an adult. I was a full-on adult before I started going, oh, right, this person recorded this person produced this album of this person and this album of this person. And yeah, you can sort of get a sense of who the producers are and what they bring to the table. Yeah, who knew?
Right. So you and Kimberly Clark knew, and it's a fascinating episode. So I hope everybody loved it. And you know the rules out there, folks. Rangers, take care of each other.
My hat, my hat, my hat. They're dancing around my hat, my hat, my hat, my hat. Well, what do you think of that? If it looks like a Mexican hat dance and it sounds like a Mexican hat dance, it's most likely a Mexican hat dance. So take off your hat and let's dance.
Yay! Oh my God. Why don't we just call that as the end of the show?